Good morning.
Good morning.
We don't have our names underneath us this time. This is Deborah Leanne and
Susanne Joy.
and we're here with our morning musings to talk to you today about Gene Key 25. Okay, so Gene Key 25 is the Siddhic state of universal love. That's big. That's like the mother and father of all love. Yeah. And then the shadow of that, something I work on every day is called constriction. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And you get to the universal love on the pathway.
Acceptance.
Oh, yeah, baby. So we're having a little conversation this morning about acceptance because I put some cacao in her coffee and she doesn't like the taste of it. And then I said, let's put this oil on it. She puts it on it. I'm not so sure I like the fragrance. Actually, you said it stinks. So we're talking about acceptance and where when things are not to our liking, which is like 99% of our day probably, where we are like, I don't like that. And so we withdraw, we hold our breath, we constrict. I know the ways that it feels like in me, but would you speak to your constriction? What does it feel like or do in your body?
It feels like a closing off. I feel I breathe shallower. I can't it's hard to open.
Yeah. When we're not breathing, it's really hard to get any space around this heart chakra of ours, which is, of course, where universal love, where we imagine it kind of living. And I can always tell when I haven't been breathing because I'll do one of those great big yeah. So as we all take a breath together, notice how that softens you and opens us all into maybe a space of acceptance, maybe a space of allowing there to be more change. We were having this conversation yesterday about allowing is the first step. Mm-hmm. Can we allow what we don't like, right? The stinky smell, the not so tasty cacao, whatever, to be there? And the next step, once we allow it to be in the space, okay, now acceptance is a whole nother level.
It's a whole nother level because that's on the emotional plane. And as we accept it on that level, we can move then into the mental, because then we're moving from the physical to the emotional to the mental, which is all about embracing.
Yeah, and boy, does that open up things to a whole different. I mean, it's. We were playing with this yesterday about how when we're constricted, we literally close down our options. We can't see other ways of being or other solutions to what we're in the middle of. But when we are in a place of accepting, it kind of relaxes us and we can kind of have a little bit wider view. But boy, embracing allows us to get we almost have, I don't quite have an owl's ability to have the 360 view, but we have such a wider capacity to see more.
Yeah.
That feels so much better too. So you may notice that we're sitting next to each other in this beautiful backdrop behind us. I'm visiting Susanne at her space.
Yeah.
So we get to do these together this week. And it's such a perfect time to be here at Equinox. And what a perfect time to talk about this key, which will be the key during the equinox this week. Because there is such a level of where's the equality, where's the balance, where's the harmony?
Right.
Dark, light, can we be with it all? Right? That's much more of an integral state. And I love the softening that your space has created in me. Even my partner said, "Wow, you're so happy, and when you're happy, I'm happy," and so you can feel like the rippling out. Mm-hmm.
Cheers.
So let's talk about constriction before we move completely a little bit more into acceptance. I feel like constriction doesn't have to look like I imagine constriction as being a tightening of the muscles, which it is on some level, right. Holding the breath or whatever. But it's also a constriction of our mind. Yeah. Very often we close down about, I can't see any other options, which is fascinating because the way the algorithms work in our social media is we keep getting fed only things that we've liked, right? Mm-hmm. So Facebook and Meta and all of the different social medias will be like, oh, they liked this in the past, so we'll feed this ad, we'll feed this post. And it doesn't give us a chance to broaden our intake or consuming of social media in a way that is more healthy. So the constriction of the mind to me feels where I still get caught up, because I can feel the constriction in my body more than I ever used to. The tightening in my jaw, the tightening in my shoulders, the tightening in my chest, tightening in my butt. Like I can feel where my butt cheeks get tight when I'm nervous. You know, when you're driving, you would be surprised. Notice the next time you're driving, when you're clenching the steering wheel, when you're clenching your butt because you're in a state of there's traffic or I'm arguing with somebody or whatever, or the news on the radio. And I just want us to invite our physical constriction for us to be more aware of that, and then see what it was that actually triggered it, and then play with it. Where are you closed off to emotional stuff?
Yeah, and that's actually getting into the repressive nature and the reactive nature.
Oh, please talk about that.
So the repressive nature is when it's ignorant of itself. Like it has the inability to look at its own pain. And so it doesn't recognize, anything that's happening to itself.
Kind of like how I was a couple years ago before I woke up to where I'm constricting. Ignorant. Okay.
Yeah. But it's not bad. It just is that it's going to be the impetus that then breaks for the breakthrough. Mm-hmm. So it's not, it right, is no what judgment. It is. Right. No judgment about it. The opposite side is the reactive nature, which is very cold. And that's when somebody hates how they feel, so they express themselves through anger. It's cold, it's like deliberate, and it's cold-heartedness. Okay. Because it's fear of feeling everything.
Oh, so I think of those people that you run into even in a grocery store. You might have some friends or family members like this that you say, hey, how you doing? And they'll be like, the traffic was, just kind of like throw up all over you. And I'm thinking, there's a lot more going on in this person's field that doesn't feel very yummy. And then I think karmically, don't we just keep creating that?
Yeah.
So anyway.
They take their pain out on the world because they don't want to
feel it.
Sit with it. Yeah. And
so I'm going to make sure that you feel it because I don't want to feel it.
They project it. Yeah.
Yeah. Kids do that a lot. When they get hurt, they run to mommy and they're like, it's like sharing their pain, which is their way of expressing how they're feeling. And it's funny because we should grow out of that. Afterwards, it's like, oh, this is my pain. I really don't need to share it with you unless you want to hear about it.
So,
where do we go from there?
We go into accepting all parts of ourselves.
Accepting that the coffee doesn't taste as good as you liked it this morning.
That's okay.
Okay. I don't know if she's embraced it yet, but
I'm accepted it.
So playing with acceptance is, how does that open in our mental? I mean, I can kind of feel acceptance more from here, from like emotional acceptance
to be with what is, right? And it's like, we're not here to try to change or force anything, but how can we just be with what's now? I mean, we might have visions of things that are in the future, but if we hang out there all the time, we're not being in this now moment. And so how can we accept what is right now, and play in that dance?
That's kind of where, when I first started playing with this gene key, which happens to be prominently in my profile, where I kept thinking of is love is our natural, it's who we are.
Right, it's the natural state.
But when we constrict in some way, closing off our belief systems, our ability to accept, our ability to receive, acknowledge, be grateful for, each of those ways is a way to receive love, to be love. So it's that constriction where we're kinking the wire, which is keeping the energy flow from getting all the way through.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, one of the things that I think Richard said something about was feeling the fear, and that is actually the holy ground. That's the love being pervasive in your life and experiencing more of life as opposed to cutting life off.
Which is the first thing we do when we're in pain,
right?
Or suffering. Isn't that what this is called? The core wound of suffering, or
it's about accepting love in.
But the name of the chapter.
The name of the chapter is The Myth of the Sacred Wound.
Aha. And this is how I was always taught, even up through in the last more recent decades, is that when you have fear, you just overcome it, right? You just think positively. That was one. Remember that? Or just act as if, like it's not, the fear's not there. And I feel like I'm softening into, oh, you know what? The fear is part of being alive.
Yeah.
And it's actually part of love. So how can I allow it to be there and stop the closing off to, like whenever we have discomfort, I was thinking about this, when we have a headache or something hurts in our body, we immediately want to get it fixed. You know, we want to take something. We want to go to the doctor,
right.
You know?
Right.
Versus, can we sit with it? Can we be with it? That takes patience and a love. And there's an old saying that used to be still and heal. Mm-hmm. Instead of running from the pain and the suffering, can we just be with it? And then the healing comes.
Right. And it's really about being with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, there's a whole bunch of avenues about being out there with others, but once you can accept life as it is for yourself, you can relax into it. And Richard says, the more you can accept yourself and others, the more love will bloom in your life. It's as beautiful and as simple as that. You just accept.
Yeah, it sounds so easy.
I know it sounds easy, but
so I'm laughing because just in the period of a couple short days, I mean, traveling is a little bit stressful, and going through some family dynamics last week was a little bit stressful, and there's some other things going on in life. And so my partner has been dealing with me through all of this. And then I wonder why, but you know what's funny, as soon as I relax into it, he relaxes into it. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This is easier than I thought. Because I'm like wanting him to be my grounding cord and to relax so that I can relax. No, it starts here. Shit. Oh, excuse me. All right. Well, this isn't going to be for kids anyway. So, yeah, let's talk about universal love.
Okay.
Play with
so when we play, we move from that complete acceptance to embracing, right? Our humanity as well as the
divinity that we are.
Yeah, and everything as it is. That's when we can go into universal love. And Deborah and I had that conversation a couple weeks ago when we were contemplating compassion and that feeling very human. universal love is made up of 5 different gene keys, really, kind of. And I really want to explore this one because it's fascinating. It's like a theme of integral the evolution of our human consciousness. So think about this. Examples of, ecstatic sensual love is in the 46th city. The devotional heart, which is the 29th city. Intoxication. Ooh, that's a good one. That's the 56th city. And compassion is the 36th city. And then this 25th city is love is the source of all. And that's why it's called universal love. It kind of encompasses all of the various love.
So we're thinking this might be a really fun deep dive for us to do. And I'm thinking School of Light would be a great place to circle up and play. In offering, how do we drop into playing in each of these gene keys in depth, and also playing with, you were saying, starting with the sacred, like the SQ.
Yeah.
So because it is our childlike innocence of how we were born into, and it's also kind of like the entry point into the Venus sequence, which is how you're here, how you're wired to love in this life. And anyway, more on that as we decide what to do with that. But I have read this chapter and listened to this chapter for years. Never saw that relationship until I saw it as a 5-point star too. So I'm glad you did that. That's very, very cool.
Yeah, and it's all about it's this. I thought it was real interesting that this is called the rose and the chalice, and this really is talking about, if we want to get into like biblical stuff too, it's talking about Christ and the blood of Christ.
Yes.
And who's accepting that love into their life, who's accepting and imbibing. Ooh, I like that word.
Yeah, when you imbibe the blood of Christ in a mass or some kind of Christian.
Metaphorically, you are ingesting that love, that universal love, into your life.
Oh, and it's funny because I grew up Catholic and I never put that together. I was like, oh, you drink the wine, it's symbolic and meh. But now and it goes to dying to heal all the sin, dying to forgive all. It's like a part of
you is dying.
Yeah, and how Jesus did that, and that's that Christ consciousness, which is so much broader than how I ever learned it as a child in church. Yeah. So I'm loving that. And then there was some beautiful other things around here. Oh, I do want to talk about, they talk about the chalice, but he also said throughout millennia, it's been called a variety of things. Cauldron. And if you think about the alchemical cauldron where you create or you change, lead into gold or whatever. But I mean, like, it is such an alchemical process that when you play with this, how this can be such a life-changing, well, they're all life-changing.
Right. Yeah.
Key.
Or like a vial containing a particular elixir, a cup or a chalice. Everyone looks for the Holy Grail. Mm-hmm. You know what? It's universal love.
Yeah.
And that comes from those 3 pillars, right? What was the first one? In physicality, it is
constriction.
No, the physicality is allowing.
Oh, yes.
Allowing. The emotional is accepting. And the third is the mental, which is embracing all that is.
Yeah. Because that's like taking, and I've ever since I've been playing with, because we're going to get into omniscience soon too, but it's like taking the top of your awareness, not just your brain, but all of your awareness, and like making it into an observation tower. It's like how they're kind of rounded and you can see the stars from all levels. That's kind of how I imagine embracing is. It's like, oh, all of this is. It just is.
Yeah.
I know. It's so beautiful then when we do that.
So, I think you want to just talk about breathing for a minute and breathing into our hearts, because this is the physiology on this is our heart.
Yes.
And do you even know what the mudra is?
I didn't look it up.
Oh, I didn't either.
Poop.
Well, this
anyway,
feels good.
Yeah, I think it is something like this.
Yeah.
Or it might be this, because it's like that, putting your thumbs into your heart space. So just allowing us to, good morning, drop into that reflective, contemplative space. And it's so much about softening and opening and expanding and making space. So even, this is the practice that I've been playing with, even when I feel crunchy and I can feel like my body or my emotions kind of getting tight and I'm choosing to remember to ask myself, is there room for love even here? And as soon as I do that, it opens up, because
Right.
fear is so,
Yeah.
and there's no room for anything. Whereas love is expansive and opening and softening. And so just remembering to put space around what doesn't feel good in our system. Stinky oils.
Yes.
And saying, is there room for love even here? And of course there is. So.
And we'd like to invite you, if you're interested and you hear this by the equinox, to join in our circle tomorrow. And we'll put a link below. And if you like us, if you like our chats and our School of Light Collective and would like to join in, like or subscribe to the channel and partake of the chalice with us.
Yes, please do, because it's a playground that
Yeah.
we're not like the rule keepers
No.
of the playground. We're just inviting you to come play on the playground.
Exactly.
So, Sacred Play Lady, she's the teacher in that world. Okay, take good care.